David booked the appointment 3 weeks in advance. He wore a collared shirt to a video call. He printed out his bank statements and highlighted them in 3 colors, because he wanted to look serious about this. The financial advisor smiled at him through the screen and asked what his goals were. David said he wanted to stop feeling like his paycheck evaporated by the 15th of the month. The advisor nodded, tapped a few keys, and pulled up a slide. Diversify your portfolio. Increase your 401k contribution by 2%. Consider a Roth IRA. Automate your savings. 45 minutes later, David paid a $300 consulting fee and walked away with a PDF full of advice he already knew. He didn't need someone to tell him to save more. He needed someone to explain why he couldn't. 3 months later, David still hadn't opened a Roth IRA. He still didn't know where $200 went every month. The PDF sat unread in a folder labeled Finance, next to 11 other PDFs from 11 other well-meaning consultations. Before we go on, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far this story travels. And if you're loving it so far, join the family by hitting subscribe, because tomorrow we've got something special lined up just for you. This is the quiet failure at the center of the personal finance industry. Advisors are trained to optimize money that already exists. They are not trained to explain why the money disappeared before it could be optimized. A financial advisor can build you a beautiful retirement projection. He cannot sit next to you at 9 p.m. and ask why you ordered delivery again. For that, you need a different kind of discipline, not a person, a practice. In Japan, it has a name, Kakeibo. The woman who diagnosed the problem in 1904, Hani Motoko, was Japan's first female journalist, working in an era when that job barely existed for women at all. She spent her career watching households, and she noticed something that most economists of her time ignored. Poverty and carelessness were not the same disease, but they produced identical symptoms. A household earning a modest but stable income could still end every month in crisis, not because the income was too small, but because nobody was watching where it went. In 1904, she published a simple ledger. She called it Kakeibo, the household financial book. It wasn't clever. It wasn't a system of leverage or compound interest tricks. It was a notebook with 4 questions printed at the top of every month, and a place to write down every single transaction by hand. More than a century later, that notebook is still used across Japan, largely unchanged. It survived spreadsheets, budgeting apps, and 100 years of financial innovation, because it solves a problem those tools were never built to solve. It doesn't manage your money. It manages your attention. A financial advisor manages money. Kakeibo manages the person spending it. Picture your income as water carried in a bucket. A financial advisor's job is to help you carry more water. A raise, an investment return, a side hustle. That's valuable work. But if your bucket has holes in it, carrying more water just means losing more water, faster, with better posture. Nobody hired to grow your money is going to crawl inside your bucket and find the holes. That's not the job. The holes are personal. They're the $7 coffee that costs nothing on its own and everything in aggregate. They're the subscription you forgot you had. They're the late-night order placed not out of hunger, but out of boredom, stress, or the simple desire to feel like something good happened today. An advisor sees your bank statement. Kakeibo makes you write the transaction down by hand, in the moment, with your own pen. That single difference changes everything about how your brain processes the purchase. Behavioral economists have a term for what credit cards do to your brain. They decouple the pleasure of buying from the pain of paying. When you hand over cash, you feel the loss physically. Your wallet gets thinner. When you tap a card, the transaction is instant and invisible. Beep, and it's over. The purchase registers as pleasure, with none of the corresponding cost, so your brain stops asking whether it was worth it. Kakeibo reverses the decoupling on purpose. You write the number by hand. You confront it again at the end of the day. You feel the transaction twice, once when you make it, once when you record it. A financial advisor cannot install this discomfort into your nervous system. Only the practice itself can. The 4 questions. At the start of every month, before a single yen leaves your account, Kakeibo asks you 4 questions. Not 4 suggestions. 4 questions you are required to answer honestly, on paper, before you're allowed to spend. How much money do I have? Your actual, fixed income for the month. Not your dream income. Not the number you'll hit if that freelance client finally pays you back. How much would I like to save? This is decided first, before spending, which flips the entire logic of Western budgeting. Most people calculate income minus spending and hope something is left for savings. Kakeibo calculates income minus savings, and whatever remains becomes your spending limit. You pay your future self like a landlord who doesn't accept excuses. How much do I need to spend? Rent, groceries, utilities, transportation. The costs that exist whether you like them or not. How can I improve? This is the question a financial advisor never asks, because it isn't about money at all. It's about behavior. Did you eat out 5 times because your fridge was empty on a Tuesday, or because you were avoiding your apartment after a rough week? Kakeibo doesn't want your excuse. It wants your pattern. Answer these 4 questions honestly, and you've done something no advisor's spreadsheet can do for you. You've made your spending a decision instead of a reflex, sorting your life into 4 boxes. Most budgets fail within a week because they demand 30 categories. Groceries, gas, streaming, gym, pet food, coffee, parking, gifts. By day 4, you're exhausted just looking at the spreadsheet, and by day 5, you've abandoned it entirely. Kakeibo strips this down to 4 buckets, and the sorting itself is where the honesty happens. Survival. Rent, food, medicine, utilities. If you skip it, something breaks. Optional. Restaurants, new clothes, entertainment, that latte. If you skip it, you're mildly inconvenienced, and you survive. Culture. Books, courses, museums, anything that grows you rather than distracts you. This is the category most Western budgets don't even have a name for, because most Western budgets lump growth and distraction into one blob called fun. Extra. Car repairs, medical emergencies, a wedding gift you didn't plan for. The unpredictable costs of being alive. Try telling yourself that a $7 latte is survival. It isn't. Caffeine is a $2 pill. The latte is optional, and calling it survival is exactly the kind of quiet self-deception Kakeibo exists to interrupt. A financial advisor will never sit across from you and ask which bucket your Tuesday afternoon impulse purchase belongs in. He doesn't have the receipt. You do. And once you sort a full month of receipts into these 4 boxes, you don't need him to tell you what's wrong. You can see it. A bloated optional bucket next to an empty culture bucket is a diagnosis you can read yourself, in your own handwriting. Here's where Kakeibo gets stubbornly old-fashioned. It rejects apps, it rejects spreadsheets, and it insists on pen, paper, and, in its more disciplined form, physical cash sorted into labeled envelopes. This sounds inconvenient in a world where your bank balance updates itself in real time, but the inconvenience is the entire mechanism. Friction is the feature. Every step it adds between you and your money gives awareness a chance to catch up with impulse. Typing 45 into a budgeting app is data entry. Your brain barely registers it. Writing 45 by hand, next to a description of what it was for, forces you to relive the purchase a second time. Your hand moves. The pen scratches. And somewhere in that slow motion, the purchase becomes real, in a way the tap of a card never was. And a credit card, no matter how well you track it afterward, has no bottom. You can keep spending past your limit, and the machine will still say beep. Cash in an envelope has a bottom. When the envelope for groceries is empty, the spending stops, because there's no more paper to hand over. There's no overdraft ferry. No quiet promise to figure it out later. The physical reality of an empty envelope is a wall your brain respects in a way it has never once respected a number on a screen. Practitioners describe the payday ritual almost fondly, withdrawing the month's spending money in cash, dividing it across the envelopes, holding the entire month in your hands for one strange minute. That minute does more for awareness than 3 months of notifications. A financial advisor might recommend a budgeting app with automatic categorization instead. It's genuinely useful software. It's also, for a certain kind of spender, one more layer of insulation between you and the discomfort you actually need to feel. Automation solves a time problem. Yours is an attention problem. If you bring debt to a financial advisor, he'll likely recommend the avalanche method. Pay off the highest interest debt first. Mathematically, he's right. It saves you the most money over time. Kakeibo, or at least the psychology behind it, would push you toward the snowball method instead. List your debts from smallest balance to largest, and attack the smallest one first. Interest rate be damned. Kakeibo makes this trade with its eyes open, understanding that a person who spends a year attacking the largest debt with no visible progress tends to quit. A person who eliminates a small balance in 6 weeks feels something a spreadsheet can't produce: momentum. One debt gone is one line crossed out by hand, proof that the plan works. That feeling compounds faster than interest, and it's often the difference between a plan that gets followed and a plan that gets filed away in a folder called finance, unread. An advisor optimizes for the math. Discipline optimizes for the version of you who actually keeps going. What Kakeibo knows that advisors don't ask about a financial advisor's entire relationship with you exists inside a spreadsheet. He has no idea you buy things when you're lonely. Your online shopping spikes every time your sister calls about her promotion, and that pattern appears nowhere in his files. The subscription you forgot to cancel is really a $12 monthly reminder that you meant to start learning guitar and never did. Kakeibo's fourth question, how can I improve, is the one part of the entire practice with no numbers in it. It's the part where you sit down, look at the pattern the receipts make, and ask what the month was actually about. Not to punish yourself, just to notice. The review takes 20 minutes, and people who stick with the method say those are the minutes that change them, because it's the only moment in modern financial life where anyone asks why instead of how much. Once the feeling behind the purchase is on paper, next to the receipt, it stops being a vague hum of guilt and becomes something specific you can act on. I overspent because I was stressed becomes next month I'll go for a walk before I open a delivery app. Small, specific, nothing an advisor would put on a slide, because it isn't financial advice. It's self-observation, and self-observation is the one service no advisor can bill you for. There's a Japanese idea called taru wo shiru, knowing what is enough, and it sits quietly underneath everything Kakeibo does. The idea is less about restriction and more about noticing that most of what you buy in the optional bucket was never really about the object. The candle was about wanting the apartment to feel like a home. That third pair of nearly identical sneakers was about a bad week. The object arrives, the feeling stays, and the receipt goes in the box. When you stop buying things to numb a feeling or impress someone who was never paying attention anyway, the money doesn't vanish, it moves. It shows up in the culture bucket, in a book, a class, a weekend trip you actually planned instead of impulsively booked. You end up spending less and living, somehow, a little richer. A financial advisor's job is to grow the number in your account. Kakeibo's real accomplishment is quieter. It teaches you to stop needing the number to be bigger to feel calm. None of this means financial advisors are useless. If you have a complex investment portfolio, an inheritance, or a small business with tax exposure, that expertise is worth paying for. But most people who feel bad with money don't have a complexity problem. They have an awareness problem. And no advisor's PDF is going to sit next to them at 9 at night and ask whether the order they're about to place is worth 2 hours of their life. Kakeibo will. It's slower than hiring someone, and less impressive than a retirement projection with a rising line on it. It costs a notebook and a pen, and it does something a $300 consultation never managed to do for David. It makes the quiet cost of spending visible again, one handwritten line at a time. So before you book another appointment, try the cheaper option first. Buy a notebook. Answer the 4 questions. Sort a month of receipts into 4 boxes, and look honestly at what they tell you. What's one thing in your optional bucket right now that brings you nothing? Write it in the comments. Then write it down in your Kakeibo, and watch what happens when you finally see it. That's our story. If you enjoyed it, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. And tomorrow, more stories are waiting for you. Thanks for watching.